It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the government announces an inquiry into the accidental release of an asylum seeker convicted of sexually assaulting a teenage girl. David Lammy is grilled in Parliament over the mistake that saw Hadish Kabatu freed before being arrested again, as he told MPs there will be accountability.
This was a mistake that should not have happened. The victims expect better, the public expects better, and this government expects better.
It comes as prisons across the country are told to introduce more stringent checks to make sure this embarrassing incident isn't repeated. But there are concerns about how it will work in a system that's already struggling to cope. Also tonight, a change in the law to protect children conceived through rape. I speak to Natalie Fleet, the Labour MP who led this campaign to take away the parental rights of sex offenders, putting survivors' needs above their rapists. Plus,
Knowing about Andrew and Epstein. Have you asked the police to cover up?
the King heckled over his brother Prince Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein as he greets crowds outside Lichfield Cathedral. And I'll speak to the former Premier League striker who has become the first person to score in all 10 tiers of the English football pyramid. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. Prisons across England and Wales have now brought in enhanced checks before inmates are released. This is after a sex offender was mistakenly freed on Friday. Failed asylum seeker Hadish Kabatu, who was convicted of sexually assaulting a teenager and a woman in Epping, was released by accident instead of being deported. Well, after a manhunt, he is back in custody and due for deportation this week. The Justice Secretary says there will be an independent inquiry into what happened, and Downing Street has ordered prison governors to carry out new procedures to avoid a repeat of this incident. And there are questions around how it's actually going to work in a service that's already overstretched and struggling to cope. Sky's Molly Malone has our first report tonight.
Hadish Kabatu, the asylum seeker and sex offender who was freed from prison by mistake, is now back in custody and due to be deported as early as tomorrow. But still, plenty of questions for the prison service and the government about how this embarrassing episode ever happened.
Mr Kabatu was scheduled to be transferred from HMP Chelmsford to an immigration removal centre, from which he was to be deported. Due to what appears to have been human error, he was instead released into the community. This was a mistake that should not have happened. The victims expect better, the public expects better, and this government expects better.
And now a promise that an investigation led by Dame Lynn Owens, a former director of the National Crime Agency and Deputy Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, will get to the bottom of what happened, with changes to the releasing process effective from now. We've obtained these documents at 5 pages long. They're a new release checklist for a more senior member of staff to carry out, with sources suggesting it could add up to an extra 40 minutes of work per person. The main change is that a duty governor will now be responsible for implementing each check the day before. There's a specific list of questions covering foreign national offenders, and it asks the governor to make sure there are no deportation orders in place when the inmate's discharged.
I think there'll be more stringent and more robust procedures in place. I would hope they would introduce staff training, and I would hope that they robustly manage the system and overhaul it so this never happens again. We're here to protect the public, and this is a failure.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of sexual assault on a female under 16 years old.
Kabatu was arrested in the summer for the sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl and a woman in Epping. His crimes happened days after he'd arrived in the UK on a small boat, and his case was a high-profile one from the start, sparking a summer of protests and political debate. But the reality is that this is a problem that's on the rise. 262 people were released in error in the year to March. That's more than double the year before. And while this inquiry will look to establish exactly what went wrong in this case, this is a system that's not working, that's under pressure and subject to scrutiny.
It's partly to do with the churn in prisons, it's partly to do with inexperienced staff, and I think it's partly to do with the fact that there have been so many different versions of early release schemes that people are just getting confused.
Successive governments have long been accused of sticking plaster politics when it comes to prisons. They are institutions that are ultimately supposed to protect the public and rehabilitate offenders. The events of the weekend make even the basics look difficult. Molly Malone, Sky News.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister says that he is frustrated and angry after a report found the Home Office has squandered billions of pounds of taxpayers' money on asylum hotels. The Home Affairs Committee said flawed contracts and incompetent delivery left the department unable to cope with a surge in demand, relying on hotels as the solution.
We inherited a huge mess in relation to pretty well all departments in government, and that includes the Home Office. If you take the issue of asylum hotels, for example, we had years under the previous government where they didn't process claims. So tens of thousands of people didn't have their claims processed. They were then housed in hotels. That was the policy of the last government. There were 400 at the height of it. It's now about 200. I'm determined that we will close those hotels. We're processing the claims much more quickly, and where people have got no right to be in our country, we're removing them at a higher rate than the best part of a decade. So we're taking the action, but I can't tell you how frustrated and angry I am that we've been left with a mess as big as this by the last government.
It's one of the first things I did when I became leader was acknowledge mistakes had been made. But we had an answer to this, which was the Rwanda scheme. Scrapping that scheme removed a deterrent and meant that small boats crossing increased by 40%.
Let's bring in our political correspondent, Mari Aurora, who is in Westminster for us tonight. Mari, just how surprising are the findings of this report?
Well, in some ways, the findings of this report are really quite shocking. I mean, the amount of money that is being spent on asylum hotels tripling in the space of 10 years, in a decade, from £4 billion to £15 billion. This is public money. And so in some ways it is surprising, it's shocking. The difficulty is that because there is a feeling of failure when it comes to the asylum system within the public and within politicians and governments, really, then in some ways it's less surprising because it's considered to be a failed system, and a lot of politicians from both sides of the House have been saying that for a while. And so this report is saying that the system is expensive, it's unsustainable, it's unpopular with local communities. They criticise the Home Office for not using specific mechanisms that are there in order to allow them to penalise providers for their poor performance and potentially reclaim excess profits from those kinds of providers. And it says that those mechanisms are essentially underused when they should have been used far, far more. The government says they're owed about £46 million from some of these providers, and they still haven't got that back. And also, interestingly, in the report, it talks about how hotels were originally, to start with, used as a bit of a stopgap, a temporary measure, and how, because of this kind of overwhelming surge of people coming over after the pandemic, the Home Office just could not cope with the sheer numbers of people. And so it went from this temporary stopgap to a kind of more long-term go-to solution. And that has caused a lot of issues as well. And so the report is basically saying that actually the government needs a serious long-term plan to get to grips with this. And if it doesn't, then we're going to see these mistakes repeated again and again, and essentially more and more billions of pounds squandered. So you saw from that clip from the Prime Minister, he said he wants to end the use of asylum hotels by the end of this Parliament, perhaps sooner. We're expecting further details and perhaps announcements in the coming weeks on that. That's what we've heard from the government in the past couple of days. But at the moment, that promise remains undelivered. And the difficulty is when you have really difficult reports like this talking about squandered public money, when budgets are tight, when Rachel Reeves is potentially going to be putting up taxes, it makes it all the more uncomfortable for Keir Starmer.
Mari, thank you. Mari Aurora there with the latest on that story from Westminster for us. Members of a Romanian grooming gang have been jailed for a combined total of 68 years for sexually abusing 10 women in Dundee. 4 men and 1 woman were found guilty of dozens of offences, including rape, following an investigation into sexual exploitation, human trafficking and the supply of drugs in the city. Our Scotland correspondent Conor Gillis has this report.
The arrogance of a rapist on full show for all to see. Don't gotta lack no perms you can't see.
The Romanian ringleader of another grooming gang in another city, this time Dundee. Driving the streets, they trapped 10 troubled local women as young as 16, raped, violated, manipulated and conned, thinking they were girlfriends of their Romanian abusers, plied with crack cocaine before being blackmailed into sex.
This case was particularly shocking because the victims were hand-picked because of their vulnerabilities. The criminals were prowling the streets of Dundee looking for women who matched the conditions that they knew would make them particularly vulnerable, and then off the back of that exploited them sexually on a sustained and brutal basis.
And these are the predators, arrested by detectives investigating sex trafficking of foreign women to work as prostitutes. There was a video on the ringleader's phone showing a victim climbing a tree, this rapist threatening to leave her there because she didn't make money.
They're deplorable. They've had no thought as to the impact this is having on the victims. It's been quite controlled in that they knew what they were doing. You know, the fact that they're trying to get them onto controlled drugs has helped them keep control of the females and kept them coming back for more.
Officials say this vile trade is commonplace in communities across the UK. And detectives in this case have told me there are potentially a dozen or so more victims. But the biggest challenge is when those extremely vulnerable people do not recognise that they have been groomed. And officers hope that by this gang now being behind bars, they may have the confidence to come forward.
By offering them an apparently unending supply of mostly free crack cocaine, you exacerbated their vulnerabilities and then proceeded to exploit them for your own sexual gratification and whims. By contrast to the evidence given by each of you, the women were careful, credible, and convincing. Your victims are now survivors, albeit no doubt permanently damaged by what you did to them.
Authorities here appear to have acted swiftly, but even the talk of this triggers tensions in what has become one of the most polarising debates in Britain. Conor Gillis, Sky News, Dundee.
A new bill has been introduced to Parliament aiming to protect children and parents from abusers by restricting the parental access given to rapists. MP Natalie Fleet has been leading this campaign to protect survivors. She was groomed at the age of 15 before becoming pregnant. Earlier today, I sat down with Natalie and I started by asking her what this bill would mean for survivors.
In this country, there are around 10 births every single day from rape. A perpetrator, the criminal, the rapist, can then have lifelong access to that child. And so many victims and survivors have come to me and said, we need change, we need you to be our voice. They rightly want to remain anonymous. They want to protect them and their babies, but they're really concerned that that father either is having access to that child or is threatening that if they report the crime to the police, he will come and remain in that child's life forever. It's another barrier that stops women reporting, and it's just re-traumatising for the mother and really difficult for the baby. That stops today. We're going to make a change so that if a child is born of rape in this country, once there is a conviction of rape, parental responsibility is automatically removed. If there isn't a conviction, so parental responsibility isn't removed, then the courts can make a referral to the local authority to have parental responsibility removed that way. I'm absolutely thrilled.
People find it incredible that this wasn't part of legislation already. In fact, when you told the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, given his legal background, he didn't know there wasn't already a law in place. How much do you think you bringing your personal story, your own trauma to this has helped push this through and get here so quickly?
I don't want rape to be part of my story. I never came here thinking that this was something that I would speak out about. But it is a part of my story, and it's a part of our story as women, but it's a part that we're not telling. And being in government is all about priorities. What do you prioritise in the limited time you have available to change the law? When I am able to sit in front of the Prime Minister and tell him this is happening in our communities, this has been happening for a long time, and this is something that we need to challenge, he can tell me that we absolutely will, and he is doing today. I feel like this is something that's been put on the too difficult pile. We don't know how to sort it. We know that it's happening, but nobody's shouting about it from the rooftops. When you've got somebody on the government benches that is saying, this is not okay, this is how it's affecting women in my community, then the government is absolutely stepping up and doing something about it, and I'm just thrilled.
It's about removing the shame and stigma around rape as well. Shame must change size. We learnt that, didn't we, with the Giselle Pellicot trial. And you being so open about this in Parliament, how has that journey been? Because obviously it took until later in life. You were 15 when you were groomed and in a relationship and raped, and you had a daughter born of that. How difficult was it to go on that journey to get to this point? And what was it like telling your family and your daughter, who's now in her 20s, that you ended up here today making this change?
So when I did go to tell my daughter, thankfully time has moved on, and she said to me, yes, Mum, I see that. I've always seen that. And that does, we're having a wider conversation about grooming, about consent, about what that looks like. So I'm really happy about that. I wish there were loads of other people speaking up about rape, but there aren't. And I understand why. I have privilege that comes with my rape. I have my birth certificate, my daughter's birth certificate, and a DNA test that links her to the perpetrator. Most women don't have that luxury. In my constituency alone, over 10,000 women will have been raped or sexually assaulted since they were 16. There are 6 births every year as a result of rape, yet nobody's talking about it. So we all heard the saying, shame must change sides. But how can it if you are carrying it with you every day? You're not telling anybody, and you live in constant fear that you won't be believed. Being here comes with huge responsibility. I feel like I've got to use that responsibility to make sure that I speak out when others can't. I wish I didn't have to, but what I really, really hope is that I have an 8-month-old granddaughter, and I hope that she can tell her grandchildren about things that her nonna did when I had to leave her and go to Parliament. And the part that they won't believe is not the women that have endured this, but the fact that we live in a culture where he did it and she hid it. That's the part that's not okay.
And through this, you have spoken to so many women, so many families that have been affected by parental rights. Their rapists still having parental rights over the children born of rape. As you said, all of that changes from today. But just talk to me about some of the experiences, what they've had to go through before you entered Parliament and decided enough was enough.
Some of the stories have just been heartbreaking. So one woman told me that she couldn't remember the rape. She woke up and it was happening. But the rape then grew inside her for 9 months. During that time, she tried to take her own life. And it was a midwife that said, the reason your mental health is so poor is because this pregnancy results from rape. By then, she felt that there was very little that she could do about it, but she told me that she struggled with the way that her child looked and the way that it looked like the man that had hurt her. And she struggled to bond with the child, and she didn't tell anybody. She never felt like she could do that and get the support that she needed, including those that she loved. Because he said that if she told anybody, he would come and have access to that child and use that child as a weapon. And she told me, I told her that this was happening today, and she said that this means that potentially she can speak out for the first time. That feels like an option to her. That's absolutely incredible. Every time anybody tells me that politics doesn't matter, I tell them that politics is really personal and this is a difference it makes.
Oh, that bill being voted on in Parliament this evening. If you've been affected by anything you heard in our interview there, you can contact the Samaritans. 116123 is their number. They're available at any time, or you can email them, joe@samaritans.org. Now, a woman accused of stalking the family of Madeleine McCann has given evidence in her defence at Leicester Crown Court today, a jury hearing how the 24-year-old genuinely believed that she was the missing girl who disappeared in Portugal in 2007. Our crime correspondent Martin Brunt has more from court.
Julia Wandelt spent 2 hours in the witness box speaking confidently in English and answering questions from her lawyer about her own identity. She said she still believes that her Polish parents are not her real mother and father. Their hair and eye colour were different from hers, she said. They didn't talk about her childhood, and when she questioned them more, they refused to show her her birth certificate or do a DNA test, she said. As a child, she told the court, she was abused by an elderly relative, a man her father told her had once abducted somebody. She began to suspect she was an abducted missing girl, she said, and started to research missing people websites. That's how she discovered the McCann case, a name that meant nothing to her before that, and she started to think that she could be Madeleine McCann. Had she chosen it for publicity? Asked her lawyer. No, she said. Had she chosen it for financial gain? No, she said. I just wanted to know who I am. Then she discovered her abuser shared the same surname as a previous suspect in the Madeleine McCann case. That, for her, she said, was a big factor. Wandelt said in her search for information, she contacted many organisations, police, embassies, charities, and a number of individuals, but nobody could help her. She said she didn't approach the McCann's family initially because she didn't want to give them false hope and it would be upsetting for them. Then she did contact Madeleine's parents. Why did she do that? She was asked by her lawyer. Because I think they were misled, because if the police treated their daughter's case the way they treated me, I'm not surprised they didn't find their daughter. She said she hadn't intended harm to the McCanns and had a lot of sympathy for them, even though, she went on, I'm in prison for 8 months because they look for their child and I look for my parents. Wandelt will continue to give evidence in court in the morning.
The King unveiled a new memorial to honour LGBT members of the armed forces earlier today. However, his visit to Staffordshire was slightly overshadowed by hecklers who yelled questions about Prince Andrew's links to Jeffrey Epstein. This is as the King visited Lichfield Cathedral earlier on today.
How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you asked the police to cover up?
The King meeting members of the public outside the cathedral, someone shouting, "How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein?" The King not acknowledging the comments. The man was then pulled away and taken out of sight by someone in the crowd. So has come here on the UK Tonight. We'll speak to some of the Brits caught up in Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. And what next for Sheffield Wednesday? We'll be discussing their fall into administration.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
Hello, welcome back to Jamaica now, where the president has urged people to stay indoors or follow evacuation orders as Hurricane Melissa heads towards the island. Live pictures of the forecasted storm on your screen now. It has strengthened into a Category 5 storm, the most powerful on record, threatening Jamaica. Forecasters warning it's going to bring flooding and landslides, causing widespread damage right across the island. Well, we can speak now to British tourist Toby Lindley-Smith, who is on holiday in Jamaica with his family. Toby, good to speak to you. I know it's around 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Jamaica at the moment. Talk to me about what's happening there, because I understand the hotel you're staying in is preparing for the oncoming storm.
Yeah, that's correct. Hi, Sarah-Jane. Nice to talk to you. Yeah, it's a weird atmosphere here, I would say. It's people are sort of staying calm, but obviously there's an undercurrent of panic. We, as Brits, aren't really used to this kind of thing. So yeah, we're all a bit nervous, but the hotel are doing everything they can. We, as you say, we go into lockdown about 7 p.m. It was actually supposed to be this morning, but because the storm's moving quite slowly, they delayed it. So we've been able to be out and about today and, you know, going around the resort and just, you know, stretching the kids' legs and, yeah, trying to make the best of it, get some food, that sort of thing, and before we hunker down overnight.
Yeah, I would imagine an extremely strange atmosphere, because you're actually there for a celebration for your mother-in-law's 60th. Under the circumstances, please pass on our best to her, because I'm sure this isn't the way that she wanted to spend her 60th birthday. But the main priority is keeping safe and waiting for the storm to pass. So what kind of official advice have you been given? What supplies have you got? Where will you be when the storm hits?
Yeah, so the hotel have been really good, to be fair. So obviously when we arrived 3-4 days ago, Melissa was just a low-level tropical storm in the middle of the sea. So there was no warning because there was nothing to warn, you know? So it's escalated so much. So yeah, the hotel have, they've given us lots of advice about what to do, barricading the windows, trying to put mattresses up against them. As an emergency, you know, diving into the bathroom or into the shower. If it gets really bad and the windows blow out, you know, no circumstances going outside or opening the windows. I mean, a lot of stuff that's kind of obvious, but again, for us Brits here, it's unprecedented. So yeah, it's good to have that kind of basic advice. And, you know, they've been good with the food. They've been giving us parcels to kind of store in our room. I think our main worry is really, it's obviously flooding. We're right on the coast, as you can see behind me. Hopefully the surging isn't as bad as it could be. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much social media. And yeah, and also the aftermath, of course. Like, you know, what do we expect tomorrow afternoon? The storm is supposed to have passed by then, but, you know, what will be the state of the island and the people here? So that's what we're all really worried about. And of course, ourselves. I have 2 small kids. So, yeah, not an ideal holiday, let's put it that way.
No, very much not an ideal holiday. But as you said, you feel like you're being given the best advice. The hotel staff, very calm. They're prepared for this, even if it is, you know, short notice in terms of, you know, this storm coming. In terms of, you know, you say you've been getting a lot of your information from social media, but in terms of the weather forecasters there, what you've seen on the television, I know the president's been speaking, because not everybody in Jamaica is in such sturdy environments as you are in a hotel, you know, a lot of concrete, stable building. You know, what have you been hearing on the local news there about the advice to evacuate for some parts of the island?
Yeah, I mean, from what we've seen, again, like you say, from the local news and watching the Weather Channel and things like that, it feels like the government are doing what they can. I mean, there's been a lot of evacuations. I saw in the news they evacuated disabled people and pregnant women first and got them sort of sheltered, you know, more at-risk people, which is obviously really important. I guess you can't force people to, you know, to get undercover. People will do it if they want, and someone might take the chance. But I do really feel the government are acting. Obviously, as you say, very short notice. Really only had a couple of days to prepare for this. So I do think they're doing what they can, honestly. And you know, they are prepared. They are used to hurricanes, albeit this one is apparently slightly exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, Toby, you're being very calm and very practical about this, which is the only way you can be, right? Because you know, this storm is coming, and you're going to make the best of it. You're going to look after your kids. You know, try and make it an adventure for them, I would imagine, so they don't worry too much. And you know, you're there with your family. You're all in this together. In terms of the travel operator you travelled with, the British consulate, for example, has there been any official guidance or word there? Because as you said, the storm is one thing, it is the aftermath, the potential damage to infrastructure. We're talking, you know, electricity, roads, all of that. Is there any kind of word on what's going to happen after the storm has passed?
So, I mean, it's nice that you say I'm projecting a calm image inside, maybe not quite so much, but yeah, trying to hold it together, mainly for the kids. As for advice, the tour operator, I'm honestly not sure. I wasn't the lead booker on the trip. We were a part of a massive group. So I'm not sure if they've been in touch. The Foreign Office have not, but I have registered myself with them and let them know that I'm here. I don't know if they'll respond, or I guess a lot will depend how bad it is, where we are. We're on the northeast shore. According to your projection I just saw a minute ago before you put me on, we're kind of right in the path of it, which is obviously not ideal. But I guess a lot depends on the aftermath and what sort of the state of the place we're in will be, the surrounding area, the general infrastructure, power, Wi-Fi, that sort of thing, you know, even phones. Honestly, not had much advice beyond what the hotel have been trying. The staff here have been great. They've really been trying to keep everyone calm. And honestly, the vibe is pretty calm. I mean, people are I'm in the lobby right now. Behind me is obviously the sea, as you can see. There's lots of people just milling around, just trying to kind of socialize, stretch their legs, because, you know, we're obviously going to be locked down for probably 15 hours, I would say. People are just trying to stay calm. And I guess we won't know the extent of it until it hits us. And that's really the fear, is that, you know, what comes next. So what can you do?
Oh, look. Well, Toby, you know, you're coming across very calm and assured on TV speaking to us, but I appreciate that it is a really concerning time for you and your family. Look, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that we can talk when this is all over, and you know, hopefully there'll be lines of communication so you can let people at home know that the storm has passed and you are safe. Obviously, you know, electricity will probably be one of the first things to go in your area. But look after yourself and your lovely family, and we'll talk again, Toby.
Thanks, Sarah-Jane. All the best.
Thank you so much. That's Toby Lindley-Smith, British tourist out there in Jamaica as Hurricane Melissa heads towards the island. No part of that island will be untouched by that hurricane. It's due to hit in the early hours of the morning, UK time. We'll keep across developments here on Sky News for you and monitor the hurricane's progress and, of course, the aftermath. Still to come here on the UK Tonight. We'll discuss what is next for Sheffield Wednesday, one of football's oldest clubs. The bidders are apparently lining up to buy the historic club. We'll be asking what's next. Sheffield Wednesday's joint administrator says there are 4 or 5 serious bidders interested in taking over the Championship club. Sheffield Wednesday were put into administration on Friday, and it's hoped new owners could be in place at Hillsborough by the end of the year. Wednesday now bottom of the table after receiving a 12-point deduction last week for going into administration. Well, I'm joined now by Christina Philippou, a sports finance expert at the University of Portsmouth, and James Mappin, the co-host of the Wednesday Till I Die podcast. Thank you both for joining us on the UK Tonight to discuss Sheffield Wednesday, the future, which Wednesday fans, James, may feel is a bit brighter. Never have I known football fans celebrate their club going into administration.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing as Sheffield Wednesday fans. People have been saying it's a dark day for Sheffield Wednesday, Friday at lunchtime, but it wasn't. I speak for all Sheffield Wednesday fans by saying that, yeah, we were celebrating it, and it does feel very strange. It's the first time that, as a football club, we have gone into administration, and I don't wish it on anyone, but as fans, we just felt that was the only thing that could actually save us from the previous owner, which, it has been, the last 10 months have been truly horrific as a football fan. The way that we've been treated as fans, the way the players and the staff have also been treated as well, has just been totally abhorrent. And yeah, it was welcome news on Friday, and the communication that's come out of the football club by the administrators and things since Friday lunchtime has been, well, it feels like a different club already, which I know is, again, mad to say when, if things go wrong, the club could not exist. But we all know that'll never happen. And yeah, it's great news that people are actually interested as well.
Yeah, so many fans boycotting their beloved club because of the owner, yourself included, now flooding back to Hillsborough. There was a home game at the weekend, many people heading to celebrate. Christina, how was Sheffield Wednesday allowed to get to this point? Because this has been a demise happening in slow motion. All the fans could see what was happening. Football fans, across the leagues could see what was happening. How was it allowed to happen?
Yeah, it's been horrific, as James pointed out, and there have been so many kind of pressure points along the way that were very clear. Lack of payment of wages is always an indicator, and we saw that happen repeatedly. And unfortunately, as a result of that, we're probably going to see this possibility of even more points deductions coming Sheffield Wednesday's way, which is not great. But it's. Yeah, of the worst case scenarios, going into administration is the best of the bunch because it is effectively a rescue of the club, as opposed to where it was headed, which was, liquidation if things continued happening the way they were heading. So,
yeah, James, you'll take League One football next season if it means new owner and a different future for the club. Can you give us a bit of insight as to how your club got into this position?
Well, how long have I got? Because it's been going on for quite some time. I mean, it rapidly accelerated from January, I want to say, when we had Danny Rail was the manager back then, and kind of communications broke down with him and the chairman, and then since then, I think he probably knew a lot more than what the fans knew and what the club kind of let on, really, because he clearly wanted to get out of the football club, and rightly so, knowing what's happened. And then you get to the summer, and we hear that players aren't being paid on time, and that happened 5 times out of the last 7. So, and then not only was it the players, which is bad enough, but then it was the staff as well, the staff that work in the club shop, the staff that that give up their time and things, and working for this club that they're probably also a fan of as well, and not being paid. Right, the players need the money as well, but the staff, they're the ones that it probably hurts them even more. There was people, staff having to take out loans just to get by and things like that, which is just totally it's not great for a football club that turns over the amount of money that it actually does. So then, yeah, there was calls by the Sheffield Wednesday Supporters Trust, which stepped up to the plate, calling for the boycott of, buying of the merchandise, buying of pies, pints inside the ground to try and starve the chairman of money and force him out of the football club, which, you'd like to think that the reason why it's rapidly accelerated the way that it has is because of the actions of us, the fans.
Well, Christina, 4 or 5 potential suitors of Sheffield Wednesday, if you like, are in the frame. Sheffield Wednesday, a founder club of the Premier League, one of the oldest clubs in the country. So you can see the attraction in one sense, but also the pitfalls of taking on a club that's gone into administration. How does it work?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The good news for all Sheffield Wednesday fans is English football at the moment is quite a hot asset. Lots of people want to buy in, so it's not surprising that there'll be many suitors, despite it going into administration. There is lots of potential. There's lots of money coming into the game. There is a good future. We know that there is loads of great fans out there who will support the club no matter what happens.
Yeah, the club shop took £75,000 at the weekend because, as James was pointing out, the fans had boycotted not just the football match but the club shop as well. But they went in to spend their cash at the weekend. James, I just want to talk about this new football regulator, the new independent football regulator that's now up and running as of, this month. Probably comes slightly too late for Sheffield Wednesday. But are you hopeful that they'll be involved in approving any new owners? Because, we hear this phrase fit and proper. Do you think that they should be involved in the appointment of new owners?
Well, I think the independent regulator are probably relieved that the club have actually gone into administration. They don't have to come in and sort it out. To be perfectly honest, that has been the first job. Would be a pretty tall order, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I think football has a problem. Like I think we all know that in terms of from finances as well. You look at how much clubs have to spend to get to the Premier League, and then you see some that fall by the wayside. Some make it, some don't, and it's the draw of the Premier League with the money that you can get by getting there. It attracts people to have a go and gamble the money that they haven't got. So yeah, when it comes to the independent regulator, yeah, hopefully whoever the new owners are going to be, hopefully there are stringent tests that are in place to do with this. I just think with our owner that we had before, he probably had the money to start off with, but I think it was more his personality and how things kind of went on further down the line that was really the problem. And I don't really know how a test would be able to measure that. I think we're just in Sheffield Wednesday's case just very unlucky with the owner that decided to buy us last time out.
Yeah. Well, look, hopefully onwards and upwards for Sheffield Wednesday, although you've had to take a step back to move forward, but hopefully brighter times ahead. James, thank you so much. James Mappins there, co-host of Wednesday Till I Die podcast and Sheffield Wednesday fan who will be going back to Hillsborough to enjoy the great games. And Christina Philippou, sports finance expert at the University of Portsmouth. Thanks so much for your time tonight.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come on the programme, the stuff of footballing legend. We'll be speaking to the player who has become the first to score in all 10 English leagues. And the impossible job, we'll be discussing if Eddie Jones' assessment that the England job is the hardest in rugby is correct.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I am inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
People that pod together, they have a little hive brain going on.
They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week. There's a teaser there, a teaser.
OK, nothing to see here, drama over, full stop. Anyway, we'll get to that. She will be mortified.
She's the first female chancellor.
I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Annalise has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
As you can see, David is here with a look at today's sport, and we're talking about the impossible job. This is Eddie Jones' assessment of the England job. He says it's the hardest in rugby. Is that true?
Look, I think we have a thing in England particularly...
That we make it hard.
We make it hard because we're not very good at stuff generally, but also we've invented these sports. And if you're not good at a sport you've invented, that makes it even tougher with all the history and heritage that's sort of weighing upon you. 66 and all that in football, and similarly with England 2003 and all that, because that was the last time they won the World Cup. Listen, he was speaking, Eddie Jones, ahead of Japan against South Africa, because he's back in charge of Japan. We went England, Australia, and then back to Japan. And he told BBC Sport, in English rugby, you can never talk about rebuilding because the expectation is you win all the time. That's the deal. You know, when you get the job, you're accepting into that, so you can't complain about that. You just got to get on with it. You've got to make sure you keep your head above water. The thing is that, you know, he did reach a World Cup final, 2019. But then after that, 2022, they won 5 and 12. So he went 9 months before the next World Cup. Steve Borthwick comes in, actually does pretty well. And he gets them to the semi-finals. They finish third. And in fact, Borthwick now is kind of remodelled England, quite a pragmatic side, but with real development in it. I think the other thing that Jones has made mention of is the fact that he had this sort of balance, or let's say imbalance in the squad. You had some players that were experienced, but they were on the wane. And you had young guns coming through, but they weren't quite ready to step up. So he was sort of in this, as he calls it, a no man's land. In any case, Japan against South Africa at Wembley this coming weekend. So Eddie Jones, always fun to hear.
Can I just say the red roses don't make it look too hard?
No, it's very true. It's very true.
Just saying.
Good point. Well made. All right. Well, that's as far as the rugby is concerned, but also big news as far as the Ashes is concerned this evening.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
OK. Are you ready? Yeah.
35 prisoners were released from Barlini prison this morning, but only one left in a limousine.
Duncan spoke about the letters he's had when he was in prison, and that created a bond between Duncan and Everton.
It's not just words. I love them, and I'll always love them.
It's the story which has gripped Merseyside. Walter Smith's future on the line. The Everton boss apparently close to quitting over the multi-million-pound sale of captain Duncan Ferguson to Newcastle.
We were under pressure from the bank to get...
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, my next guest tonight has become the first person ever to score a goal in all 10 leagues in the English football pyramid. Former Premier League star Jamie Cureton started his career more than 3 decades ago with Norwich City, where he got his first goal, before going on to play for clubs like Reading, Bristol City and QPR, to name just a few. And he is still going strong at 50 years old. I spoke to Jamie just before the show tonight, and I asked him how it feels to become a part of football history.
Yeah, it feels good, yeah. A bit shocked with all the attention I've been getting, but it's nice. It wasn't something I've ever sort of set out to do, but I've been playing for so long. I suppose these sort of targets come along, and, you know, one popped up on Saturday, so it was great to sort of finally get the goal and, you know, history made, I suppose. So, yeah, very pleased.
Yeah, and as they say in the football game, you're not an overnight success. It's taken you 3 decades of hard work to get here. But when you signed for KPR, they were aware that this record was approaching. So this was a team effort, wasn't it? Every ball was passed to you. Every time you got the ball, the fans and your teammates were shouting, shoot!
Yes, yeah. Last week when I made my debut, that was very much the issue. That happened quite a lot. Where this week we were a bit more sort of playing our normal game, and a chance come about, and I took it, and thankfully
it's a worldie, Jamie. It's a worldie. We're just looking at it now.
Yeah, it's not a bad one. Not a bad one. I think that's probably what's made the story a bit more special. But I think the team were probably more delighted than I was, as you can see in the celebrations. They've been great with me since I walked through the door. Been brilliant, and they've been sort of, like I say, very pleased that I've achieved something, with them. So it's nice for me and nice for them and the whole club. So very, very pleased.
What were the celebrations like?
Chaotic. They've been put online, I think, so they are available for people to see. A lot of singing, me being thrown around the place. We had a minibus, so a few of us travelled back together, so a few sort of beers and stuff on the way back, and they managed to sing every song and fit my name in it somehow.
What was your favourite?
Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas. They managed to fit Curo, which is my nickname, in it. All I Want for Christmas is Curo. So that was quite good. So yeah, they've been brilliant. Like I said, they've really made it special, and it's just been quite nice to play football now for the fun of it, enjoyment, the sheer buzz of just playing. And I couldn't have asked for a better group, and a team like them to sort of share it with.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie, how liberating to be playing into your 50s. As I said, you've been playing for 3 decades now, from the Premier League, every tier of English football. Fans will recognise you from Norwich City, Bristol City, QPR, Reading, Colchester United. You really have travelled the length and breadth of the country to get to this incredible record where you've essentially completed football, as your club said. What is the next goal? Excuse the pun intended, but what's the next goal for you? Because you're not stopping, are you? This isn't your sign-off.
No. I'll keep going. I'm a few goals away from 400, so I've checked and I've been told it's 5, it's 6. I've tried checking online the other day and it come up as, I think it was 14. So I don't know if some are missing or some have been added. So that's something I'd like to get to. So me looking at it, if I get 13, 14 goals, that should do it without anyone moaning and arguing that it's not enough. But yeah, someone told me I was only needed 4 to 6, but it's hard to check. I've been playing that long. There's goals missing somewhere, I think. But if I say 10, then that should get me 400. So that's one target. And then anything after that, I haven't really got many more. I'm too old to probably set too many more targets. So playing at 50, scoring at 50, getting to the top 10 divisions is unbelievable. If I can get 400, not saying I'll retire, but I'll be quite happy.
Yeah, I mean, the only numbers we should be talking about, it's not your age, it's the number of goals you score. Better rack up 10 just to make sure.
I think just to make sure that
so it could be in no doubt.
Yes, I don't want anyone questioning me. So if I say 10, then if I'm over the 400, brilliant, and at least no one can complain that I haven't sort of got to it. So that's probably the next target for me in my head. If I can, score a few more goals for KPR and hopefully help us get promotion, then it'd be a good end to the season.
Jamie, so good to talk to you, and congratulations
Thank you very much.
on completing football.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Time now for a look at the weather. It's looking rather changeable this week. Showers or prolonged rain at times, but it will turn a little milder. Southern Britain looking fine this evening, but northern parts will turn wet from the west with snow possible on northern peaks, while Ireland can expect showers. The raw wind will strengthen once again after a brief lull. The rain is going to spread through most parts overnight, although mainly light and patchy in the south. Northern parts will see a scattering of showers moving in as the rain clears. The south looks mostly dry. That's all from the UK tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8. Up next is The World with Gillian Joseph. We'll see you tomorrow.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country. It's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.